It had been an exciting day. Katie learned that when you wrap a present, the paper doesn't always stay on. Orbie discovered when you're waiting for something to start, time seems to slow down to a crawl. And Chance found out that ribbon is a great thing to play with when you're a pussycat. The dining room was full of balloons and funny hats. It was Orbie's Earth Day. Katie's family didn't know what day his birthday was, so they decided to celebrate the day he came to Earth. He was having a family party and anxiously looking forward to his presents. At dinner after his planet cake, Katie gave Orbie her present with a tape of some of his favorite music. Orbie jumped up and kissed Katie and thanked her very much. Dad gave Orbie a detective book with a magnifying glass and a flashlight. Orbie couldn't believe it. He raced around and hugged Dad tight and said thank you. Then it was Mom's turn. She lifted a big box onto the table. It had shiny paper and a bright ribbon. He pulled the ribbon and stood on the chair to pull all the paper off. Under the paper was a shoebox. Orbie's heart sank low in his chest. He didn't really wear shoes. Had Mom forgotten? He knew he had to be polite, so he made a smile on his face. Then he lifted off the lid and pulled back the tissue papers. And there in the box lay the most amazing pair of cowboy boots. He bugled and flipped right out of his chair, and he cartwheeled around to Mom and landed right in her lap. He gave her a terrific smooch on the cheek to say, thanks for the best present in the whole world. Katie couldn't help but giggle because he knew Orbie was going to love the cowboy boots. And with a zip, Orbie was back at his place, tissue paper flying everywhere. And he pulled the boots out as happy as you could imagine. They were perfect. That evening, the friends played cowboys for hours. Orbie felt like a real cowboy in his boots. And later, when they were going to bed, Mom whispered that cowboys took their boots off when they slept. Orbie wanted to keep them on. Mom kissed Orbie and turned out the light. She knew that if he was uncomfortable, he would take the boots off. The next morning, Orbie was up bright and early. He clumped down the stairs to breakfast with his boots still on. As he scooped up his cereal, he told Katie that he wanted to play cowboys again. And Katie agreed. They played cowboys and rode imaginary horses in the backyard. Andy joined in. Katie rescued Andy, who was almost squished by a wild stampede of horses, while Orbie chased the horses away. Then Orbie rode a bucking bronco and tried to tame it. They all had fun, but I have to say that by the middle of the afternoon, Katie wondered if maybe they could play something else. Orbie looked at her in surprise. He was a cowboy, and that was what he wanted to play. And Katie shook her head and went inside to paint a picture of a horse. Orbie loved his boots so much that for 3 days he didn't take them off. Orbie found other friends to play cowboys with. Cowboys were all Orbie could think of. The next day was hot and sunny, and Tom invited the family over for a swim. Orbie, of course, wore his boots. At the pool, Katie jumped in with glee, and Mom dove off the board. Tom did some silly jumps. Orbie watched from the lawn chair. They were all having fun, and he was hot from head to toe. But if he went into the pool, he'd have to take off his boots, and he was never going to do that. Then Tom suggested the game of ball in the pool. He brought out a big beach ball. It was huge, and it made Katie laugh so hard because when it landed near her, she could barely lift it, and it looked like so much fun to Orbie. As he sat watching and thinking of the cool water, he could feel his toes wiggle a bit in the boots. The boots were starting to feel a little hot. Orbie looked down at them. They were the best cowboy boots in the world, and he was never going to take them off. When he looked up, Tom was waving some diving rings in the air. Orbie absolutely loved diving for rings, and Tom threw the rings, and Orbie got up to see where they went. Katie called to Orbie to help her. Orbie smiled. He really wanted to, but he was never going to take off his boots. Thinking of the boots made him realize that now they were really hot and sweaty. His toes really wanted to feel the cool water and to kick around in it. He didn't know how, but one of his feet kicked a boot off, and suddenly so did the other. Orbie looked at the cowboy boots lying on the ground. He really wanted to be a cowboy. Right now, he really wanted to be a ring diver more. He tucked his brand new boots behind the chair so they wouldn't get wet. And with a leap and a spin, Orbie turned into a pink blur at the bottom of the pool. Katie shrieked with joy as Orbie swooped up with 4 rings in his hand. Everybody clapped. Orbie loved being a ring diver, too. He wondered if there had ever been a ring diving cowboy before. But he was glad to have the boots off. His toes felt so light as he kicked in the water. And Katie's family was glad they were off, too. After that day, Orbie wore the boots only when he played cowboys. They were still the best boots in the world. The rest of the time, he left them in his closet, where they waited for him. And Orbie's friends had become a bit tired of playing cowboys. Everything was back to normal. And do you know that to this very day, Orbie still has that pair of cowboy boots sitting in his closet? After all, they were his very most favorite thing. And I'm sure you have a very most favorite thing, too. Maybe when you grow up, if you keep it, you will remember how special it was to you. Just like Orbie.
Did you know? Did you know? You can make music shakers out of things you probably have at home. Just take a small plastic container and add a very little bit of rice or macaroni. Put a lid on it and shake it around. You can play along with your favorite song or make music of your own. Just make sure Dad doesn't have a headache.